Okay, what we're going to do here is draw the graph of this equation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus in on using a t-table here. I'm not going to use the slope-intercept yet. I'm going to cover that in a later video. So I want to develop how to use an xy table and how you can use this for just about any equation that you would get in an algebra class. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set up x and y table, and what we'll do is simply put x values into the table, and the y values will come out after some arithmetic, and we'll have points. We can plot the points, connect the dots, and we have our graph. Okay, so if you don't really know what the graph will be looking like, if you're totally unsure of what the final graph will look like, it's nice to have a pretty broad list of x values that we try. So we'll start maybe with a couple negatives, then we'll do a couple positives, and we'll see where that takes us. The wonderful thing about the xy table is you can keep putting in values until you have enough for a decent graph. So I'm going to put in a -2 for the y, and we can write the whole equation up here. Y is 1/4 x plus 1. So we'll have 1/4 times -2 plus 1, and then when we do the arithmetic to simplify this expression, we'll have a number that'll be the y value. We'll turn that into an ordered pair and we'll graph it. Okay, so depending on how good you are with fractions, you can do this quickly or slowly. So I'm going to put that -2 over a 1. That way we can multiply the fractions here. So that's going to be 1 times -2 is -2. 4 times 1 is 4. So that's going to be -1/2 when we reduce plus 1. So -1/2 plus 1 is 1/2. So our first point here is -2 comma 1/2. Okay, so we can go right to the graph for that. So we're going to go 2 horizontally, and we're going negative because, to the left because it's a negative value, and then we're going to go up 1/2. Great. Okay, so let's do some more, maybe one other negative one, then we'll switch over and do some positives after that. So maybe we'll do a -1. So we'll go 1/4 x plus 1. So we put a -1 in for the x. So that will be -1/4 plus 1. So if you have 1 and you take away a fourth, that's going to be 3/4. So our second point here is -1 comma 3/4. So to plot that, we'll start at the origin. We'll go 1 to the left, up 3/4. It's got a gentle slope on this line here. If you know slope-intercept, you know that this has a 1/4 slope. Okay, so -2, -1. Let's go to 0 here. It's always a good one to try. So 1/4 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. So we have the point 0 comma 1. So I'm going to start at the origin, go 0 in the x direction, 1 in the y direction. And we're starting to get an idea of what this graph looks like. It is a straight line. So let's do maybe 2 more here, a couple positive ones now. So we'll go 1. So we have 1/4 times 1 plus 1. Well, 1/4 times 1 is a fourth plus 1. So I really recommend using mixed numbers when you're graphing in the Cartesian plane. That way you don't have to worry about improper fractions, and in my experience they're easier to locate for students. So we have the point 1 comma 1 and a fourth. So we're going to go over 1, up 1 and a fourth. Puts us about right there. Getting a nice straight line here that we're going to trace out. Okay, let's do one last one here. 2. So we'll go 1/4 times 2 plus 1. So if you need to, you can put that 2 over a 1, so that becomes 2/4 plus 1. So 2/4, of course, is a half plus 1, so that's 1 1/2. So we have our last point here, 2 comma 1 1/2. So we're going to go 1 2 and then up 1.5, and we have several points now that we can connect with a line, and we can tell that this is a straight line. In later videos we'll talk more about how we can see that without even plotting points. This line is going infinitely in both directions, so let's put some arrows on here, and we've got it. Again, this is the XY table technique for drawing equations. It's very powerful. We use it pretty much throughout mathematics to graph all sorts of different kinds of objects.